The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Wednesday, and you know I love Wednesday because a lot of really wonderful stuff happens on Wednesday, starting with Ask Dr. Doreen, which will be happening in just a few moments. But I want to remind all of you that this show is meant to be fully interactive. We are asking for all of you to write in your thoughts, your questions, your comments, and especially questions for Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh in just a moment. Emily is showing you some of the different ways that you can get in contact with us. But if you're watching us live, there's only one way to watch us live. It's www.autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a desktop with a box that says questions we're answering right now. You can put your cursor there, type away, hit enter, and it shows up magically right here on my screen, and I can ask your question in real time to Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. What a wonderful thing. So I encourage all of you to participate. Without further ado, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen, and we want to welcome, of course, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We always love it when you're here.
Always a pleasure.
Well, and I want to start out by reminding everybody that Dr. Granpeesheh is here to answer your questions, and you can ask them right now in the live feature, but we always need to start by reminding you that we would never want to make it seem as though we're giving child-specific advice here.
Right.
That would be impossible. It would be a disservice to your children. But if you send in your question and give as much information as possible, it's really very possible for Dr. Granpeesheh to give you a lot of really good information to set you in a direction, to help you to pick a direction to go in. Isn't that right?
Right, yeah, and we hope so. I mean, I think the feedback we get from a lot of the families is that it's helpful. I'm just being cautious because I don't really want to give advice that might not benefit your child.
Absolutely.
Just because we don't know the background or setting where problems are happening.
Absolutely, and we know as parents that we're always asking for people to look at our children as individuals, and there's no way in just a short little box that you could put all the information that would be essential to get the right, proper, child-specific advice.
Exactly, that's the case.
So, but having said that, there's a lot that we want to talk about this week. Our entire topic this week for the rest of the show that we've been talking about is transitioning to adulthood, and so we especially are going to kind of pick out some questions this week that are of a nature that potentially is for the older kids. So especially if you have a question about that, make sure you write in, but don't hesitate to write all the questions that you have. But this is one that we've had for a while that it's, I think, key. It seems like it's a younger child, but the kinds of issues that we have to get our older kids ready for. How do you prepare kids for stranger danger and sexual predators without making them fearful or overreactive? They continue to write, someone bumped my daughter in line the other day. I was there. It was clearly not intentional, but she became very upset about the fact that the person touched her where her bathing suit is. She won't let it go. It's been difficult to get her to focus on something else. Help.
Right. So that's actually two different very important issues. So to address the first part of the question, which is actually how do we get our kids ready for safety issues or danger and so on, we have a series of lessons to teach that, and We will set up all sorts of scenarios. What we do is we first basically give our child a series of rules. And that in itself is a little bit difficult because some of our kids are so rule-governed and black and white that it's very important for them to understand kind of if there are rules where the rule alters based on certain situations. So kind of the gray in between the black and white, we want to teach that as well. And so once the child has the rules of, like, you know, let's say stranger safety, so knowing certain people are close friends, other people are acquaintances, other people might be friends of mom and dad, you know, and each of those types of categories have a different process, I guess. When a child doesn't know someone, the first thing a typically developing child would do is look at the reactions of the adult they're with. So is mom smiling? Is mom interacting with this person? That means that, and of course the verbal interaction between mom and the person will let me know how close they are, or this is a safe person, or if it's really someone that I'm alone, let's say, or someone that we don't know, then how do I react to that? And that's a full stranger. So all of that has to be taught to the child individually first, and then I think, Shannon, you might have even gone through this with Jen, but we will then generalize it to different settings. Like we'll have a staff from CARD who the child doesn't know pretend to be a stranger at, let's say, Target or the supermarket or someplace, and then we'll make certain approaches to the child, like, come with me, I want to show you something, and we'll teach our child exactly how to react to that, or all these different scenarios. So we'll actually do a lot of that kind of testing to make sure the child really did understand his lessons in vivo, in the natural environment, to make sure that our child's reacting appropriately. And again, the possibility of responses are many, and we have to make sure our child knows if mom or dad is around, go to them. If not, then you find someone at the information booth at the store, or you can find someone who's in a uniform and is a police officer. Or those are the alternatives, and we practice that with our kids, and it's funny stories around that because sometimes our guys have gotten into trouble.
Yes. Or the moms have. When you did this, when CARD did this with my child, I practically had to be sedated because I was so worried about how it was going to go. And yet you had so many safety people there to make sure that nothing could happen.
Right.
But yes, I about had to be sedated.
Right. Well, I mean, part of it is just it's really hard to leave our kids alone in a place in a little area of a store. But the other part is, like, I'm always worried that once it gets to the owner of the store, that they won't believe us that we're actually doing intervention here, and they'll arrest my folks or something, So
I actually stopped once. It wasn't for a safety protocol, but we were having trouble in a grocery store setting. And so a therapist said, I will come, I will meet you at the grocery store. I'm going to be dressed different than I normally dress. I'm going to videotape your interaction without him seeing that we're there so that we can take a look at what's actually happening, right? And so I said, I'll be at this store at this time, and he was hiding behind the green beans videotaping my child. And as I was going through the checkout, they were calling the police to come and get him.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And I had to say, no, he's here with us. Here's why. And they said, next time would you tell us?
Tell us,
And I said, well, that would have kind of wrecked it because then my child, you need another person, but, lesson learned.
Sure.
Yeah.
So these are the scenarios, and it is, I mean, that's just stranger safety.
Yes.
I mean, there's like a lot of different types of things, right? Being able to make a phone call in dangerous situations, all the 911 stuff that you should do, safety from chemicals. I mean, there's a whole ton of stuff. So this is one of the protocols or a series of lessons that we teach. Now, in this particular case, it went on, I think, the email and talked about the child misinterpreting that when someone had knocked into her, that this was a stranger doing something inappropriate.
Yeah, an inappropriate touch.
Right. And, so that it goes into two different areas of instruction. So one being the whole teaching of the rules associated with safety, but the other is the whole whole area of inferences.
Yeah.
And so the child that you write about here, that Mom, I think, is writing about, this has to do with your child not really quite understanding correctly or inferring correctly what happened there.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem. And I think it's even comes before, in terms of instruction, it comes before the whole safety stuff. Because, things like this happen. I've had children who've come home and they're very upset because somebody knocked down their backpack at school. And they thought that it was an intentional thing, and they considered it bullying, or they thought that it was something mean that was happening, whereas it was really accidental. So an earlier series of lessons that we have focus on the whole concept of intentionality, because it's so important. I mean, some of our inference programs, even at the very basic level, our kids, you have to teach them. This goes back to the whole perspective taking arena, and not being able to understand things that are happening in their environment and make the correct inferences from them. You take a child, let's say, to a restaurant, and you're waiting, and the reason you're waiting is because all the tables are dirty. And so does that, a very early part of these lessons would be to even ask our child, do you know why we're waiting? And have the child look around and infer and say, oh, because all the tables are dirty. What does that even mean? Oh, it means that somebody was sitting at these tables and they haven't been able to clean up yet. And there's a lot of stuff that we just naturally infer, and we don't realize that it's hard for our kids.
The connecting the dots.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why are things the way they are? And inferring backwards, inferring forwards, So like, what's going to happen next? Oh, someone's going to come, and busboy's going to come and clear the table, and then we're going to be able to sit down. Those types of things, and that takes a long time and a lot of practice. And when you do those things, of course, it will then help. For instance, in this scenario, what I would do right now is I would probably set up situations where family members or people who the child already knows perhaps do exactly what happened to the child, and it's explained to the child that, look, it was just an accident, or look, it didn't mean anything bad that someone touched you accidentally, those types of things, so that, because at this point the child's already had the experience, and now we're dealing with fear, which fear often comes with obsession, and that's why she's obsessing with it, on it. So it would be important to relive it with people that she's familiar with, perhaps, and then for her to understand that what happened wasn't anything bad, that it was just an accident. But the whole comprehension of the whole thing of what is accidental and what's intentional, and being able to infer and understand the difference between those two things is a series of lessons that need to be taught. And it's very important, because these types of situations happen, and they really do interfere with our social abilities and how we interact.
And it's a difficult skill, I would imagine. I think this is hard for neurotypical adults sometimes to figure out what somebody's intention, whether it was deliberate or not. Sometimes. Absolutely.
I mean, this is why even in, like, let's say the workplace, someone will say something to someone, and then they'll become, this is when we say don't take it personally. Right. Because they take it in a way that makes them defensive, which is pretty much what this child's going through. They're defensive, they're protective, they're scared. And so what happens in any scenario, it's very important to be able to just non-judgmentally understand if something was intentional or not.
Okay, great advice. We had somebody write in about sensory issues, and of course I can't find it in the crawl. Oh, here it is. Can a child with auditory processing disorder still be good at music?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's interesting because music has some elements that just kind of override the auditory processing. When we say problems with auditory processing, often we're talking about language. And the reason for that is that if sounds associated with speech are heard in, like let's say you hear things slightly delayed from one side to the other, then that's going to cause a lot of problems with determining what word was spoken. But for some reason with music, that doesn't happen. Although, and I will say that some of my kids who have other auditory sensory issues that let's say, delay their speech abilities or their language processing, especially language processing, because language is more about also being fast enough to respond and responding on time and all those things. But with music, they're absolutely talented and can do a lot of different things.
Okay, so absolutely, I would. In some cases, it could potentially even help if they're doing.
So many of our kids are just amazing with music. Okay. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, and we've used music to actually teach concepts as well, because our kids tend to focus on music much more than language sounds. I always go back to the things that some of my adult kids have told me, or recovered adult kids have told me. One of my kids has said that the only sound that was very hard to perceive or receive was speech sounds, language, and it always was something that was kind of a background noise. And I had to train myself to pay attention to it when there were all these other sounds. Music for some of the kids is really very prominent, and perhaps that's why they are very good at it. Of course, music, it has to do with also kind of math. You know, music and math are sort of related in terms of where your brain processes them, and a lot of our kids are fabulous with those types of concepts. And I've had kids who are just so incredible and nobody even knew it, and started to teach them stuff, and then we realized, oh my gosh, the child has the ability to memorize full sets of songs and play them on an instrument without instruction, you know, so... I do encourage people to really look into whether your child is talented in music or any other way, because that's just so important for their functioning.
Okay, awesome. We had a parent who started writing in last week about a teenage son and wanting him to be able to make friends and keep friends. And she mentioned that there were several different things that she was doing. There was a sailing instruction club. There were a couple of other different things. And we just in the moment, we're talking to her about a new study that came out of UC Santa Barbara showing 3 kids on the spectrum and forming a club that was their special area of interest in their school, and that they had an easier time making friends when it was the thing that they already knew how to do well. She wrote back to us this week and said that she really appreciated that information, but that she was kind of already doing clubs. Is there anything else that she might do to help with the friend situation during those important teen years?
Yeah, the teen years are hard enough to begin with for all kids. Okay, so there's many different concepts to discuss here with regards to making friends. So, and it really all just applies to normal behavior as well. So let's just go there first. So the study, you know, so to be able to, one of the early things that people have done to increase interaction or social interaction is to have an object that becomes the center of the conversation. So with very young kids, for instance, one of the things we would do is like give them a really cool thing to take to school. In the old days, it used to be just like a little cassette recorder or something, and now it could be anything, right? I mean, you could have a cool watch or a cool whatever, anything, and that becomes the center of attention, and then you can interact based on that particular thing. Now let's take that and expand on it a little bit. So a lot of times, if you see kids interacting, they're interacting about something that perhaps both of them have or are both interested in. So now it goes to put some item or thing in the middle of the conversation and make that the topic of conversation. It's not so much just a small item, but it could be, as in this case, an interest. So I'm very good at sailing, you're very good at sailing, let's talk about that. Or I'm getting my whatever belt in karate, and so are you, or you're interested in karate, and so now we can talk about that. And so it gives our child a topic that they can interact about. And I think the idea with having a little club is not just a lot of times we put our kids in clubs, okay? So, like, let's say one of my kids is in a comedy club. And actually it did result in many new friendships because all the kids in that club are actor types and they all get along and they have the same type of personality. But having said that, if you go into a club and you're just learning a new thing, it's not going to be what we're talking about. It's a whole different experience. Sometimes people will go into a club and two new kids are both in the learning phase, and what brings them together is the fact that they're both newbies.
Right.
So it's the similarities between your child and the other people in the club. So since this parent had said that they have already done the club type thing, it's important that your child's good at the activity and that there are other kids in that club who have similar interests now, or similar abilities and interests. Like I have 100 different scenarios where I've had one of my, let's say, Asperger's kids, very high functioning child, just not really feel part of any other social group except when they found one friend with whom they could interact on topics that they were both good at, that being, let's say, computer skills.
Right.
And that then provided them initially not just the bond of talking about gaming, let's say, but it went beyond that. It produced a sense of, confidence in each of them, and then they became braver to expand beyond their smaller group. That, I think, is probably a very, very, very important factor which you have to kind of pay attention to. It's not just your child going into a club and then having either an object or a topic or a skill that they can share with others. And this is really the reason, Shannon, that when we do social interaction or play even at a very early age, we always do it just with one other child. And that other child may rotate, because what we're trying to find is the perfect child for our child. We're trying to find a child who is interested perhaps, and they can interact with each other, and there's some bond occurring. And everybody knows this. Like, if you enter a new scenario, let's say you're going to a party, right? You never want to go alone.
Right.
Well, why is that? It's not like you're going with someone just because that reduces your anxiety.
Right.
And the key to being able to socialize, especially at teenage years, is to have another person who is your kind of safety net, and you can interact with each other, and then this will now give you the courage to broaden your interactions and to interact with other people and socialize. So there's so many different factors. One is make sure you have the skills to interact with one other person. So then you have, okay, great, some sort of bond happening between your child and this other child. Now the two of them are going to enter, let's say, some sort of club, and someone has to monitor and make sure that both kids are interacting appropriately, or like nobody's feeling left out and so on. And so now you can help nurture the relationships so that they go beyond just a one-to-one, and now you're entering a group relationship. And we start these types of processes pretty young, because we teach our child how to interact with another adult, then another child, then a group of adults and a child, and then a group of children. So it's this multi-phase process that we do to teach our kids how to interact. But really, it's the most important of all these things to me is finding one other friend that makes you feel safe. That's just to summarize it. One other friend that makes you feel safe, because it's just really hard for our kids to feel safe in social settings, because there's so much going on that they can't comprehend, and they feel anxious, and the more anxious you feel, obviously, the less social you are. So can you find one other peer that will become, and the peer may have similar issues, and then the two will establish a relationship, and oftentimes you don't have to do much more than that, because then the two expand out, and they just feel better, both of them.
And as you're saying this, I'm having like 3 or 4 epiphanies all at once, but the fact that this is true for all of us.
Oh, absolutely.
That we all need to find somebody that we can, so when we go to the party, there's somebody there that we have somebody to feed off, and it makes the comfort zone.
Right.
Interesting. And the other epiphany, the first epiphany that I had was that, because I say this all the time on the show as an autism parent, I try to do too much. And what I learn constantly from those of you who do ABA is that do one thing at a time and accomplish that and then do something else. And for me, as when I'm thinking about putting my son into a club, I'm always thinking of putting him into a club so that he can learn something, and I'm hoping that that social interaction can happen at the same time, when really I should be thinking of two different clubs for those things. One where there's social interaction where he's already good at the thing, and one where he's in a club to learn something.
Absolutely. I mean, just think, and as an adult, it's a little bit different, because you might suddenly decide, oh, I want to go to and learn cooking, whatever, or wine tasting, or something like that. And you join a club, and you're so relaxed about the topic. It's not really important for you to be the best cook there.
Right.
You're just there to kind of socialize. We often, as adults, we join clubs not necessarily because of we definitely want to learn how to cook, but it's more because I want to get out and meet new people, and cooking is something that somewhat interests me, so why not, right?
Yes.
So the importance of the clubs that we join as adults have more to do with the social aspect. With our kids, they're not necessarily the ones choosing. We're choosing for them. And, if our real reason is social behavior, then the thing they're learning has to be very, very easy, or our child has to have already mastered it. Otherwise, our child will enter there and will actually focus on the task in order to avoid the social, because learning a task will be easier for our kids than socializing.
Okay.
So it's just important. Yeah, and plus it's got to be social. I mean, this is one of the things we forget, is that what is social behavior? Social behavior is self-reinforcing. It's a reinforcing activity for us.
Right.
And often for our kids it isn't, because they haven't had that experience. They don't necessarily have a lot of the understanding that what are the benefits of having a best friend.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're trying to put them in a scenario, expecting them a series of really complicated behaviors to happen, and then trying to reinforce them with something that's no way would a reward be equal to having to spend 2 hours in a club with strangers.
Well, and until you've experienced, we've had Travis Breeding before on the show, and he's a young man on the autism spectrum, and he has written a couple of books about friendship and what he's learned, and he said that when he was in college, he thought he had friends.
Right.
He thought that that's what it was, but that now, for the first time in his life, he's experienced true friendship, and he had no idea what that really entailed.
Right.
Just opened his eyes, and he said, now I get why everybody was so excited about that.
Right.
But he said, I thought I had friends. There were people that I spoke to and that I did things with, but it was different than now having a true
sharing
friendship.
your soul or something, right?
Absolutely.
And honestly, Shannon, that's such a good point, because you talk about taking it back to just any normal developing adult, and the truth is we look at our friends, and oftentimes all the people that we call friends are not necessarily friends.
Yeah.
So people have different definitions of what a friendship is, actually, and there are multiple layers. There's thousands of layers of what is a friend or isn't, or a best friend, or someone I can share my soul with, and all that sort of stuff, right? It's all different, and they change.
Yes.
Right? So like one person can enter your world and all your other friendships drop down. So things change like that as well. So it's a very complicated process to teach someone. But I would say the most important thing is you identify, I guess, I'm not even going to define friendship, but I think the more important thing is finding another person with whom interaction itself becomes rewarding.
Yeah.
So that there's no need for the parent, for instance, to continue to reward the child for having to go to that club or having to call this person. It just becomes an automatic process because it's so intrinsically rewarding for the child. That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
And because our kids are kind of have stage fright in terms of social behavior. And so, but I think the way to go about it is just take small steps. Really understand your child's interests, your child's interests, not the things you wish them to be interested in, but what they really are interested in. And sometimes those things are perfectly fine. So, for instance, we worry a lot about how much time should I let my child be on the computer.
Yes.
And so we restrict our kids, right? And the truth is, any typically developing, let's say, 10 to 15-year-old boy is going to spend more time on the computer than not. And so we have to sort of try to fit our child into the normal world to some extent and allow them to do those things like other peers, because that's what all the peers are doing.
Right.
And when you talk about friendship, there was a new study that was talking about how friendships have changed because of technology.
Oh, I'm sure.
Whereas in the past you would have a few very close friends that you could call. Now you have hundreds of friends that you text or are on like Facebook with or whatever. It's a very, very different.
Isn't it bizarre? It's a
very
it's a new
different
world.
definition. Yeah.
It's new. And just not that we haven't talked about friendship enough, but to follow up, because there was a question here about a specific thing. Somebody wrote in, emailed, said, my child has difficulty keeping friends. At some point, he always gets mad and says something like, you're not my friend anymore, for things that aren't appropriate, like them just playing with another kid. What can I do so he doesn't lose friends? They never want to play with him again after he does that, because then we have to deal with the fallout for the other kids.
Sure.
Once our child has done something.
And so, again, let's analyze that, because, what happens? So the two kids are playing together. One child goes and starts playing with other kids, and then our child sees that as the end to everything.
Right.
Okay. So there's two processes that are happening. One is our child is probably misinterpreting. Again, it goes back to inferring the situation. So the misinterpretation is in that if you play with another child, that means you no longer like me. Okay, so that rule has to be overturned. And this isn't something just for our kids. This is in general. A lot of children have this problem where it's a young skill, right? So you'll have a child cry because their friend goes off with someone else. This is actually why friendships change a lot in the first 5 years or so of school age, because one child plays with someone else and interests and so on, and it changes friendships. So one thing is making sure that the child isn't misinterpreting the situation and understands that, he just talked to someone. That doesn't mean he doesn't like to be with you.
Right.
Or every person can have 5 friends. That doesn't mean that if he has another friend, you're no longer his friend. Right. And those are all rules that our child has just put down because they're black and white rules. Right. And then the second part of this is just dealing with jealousy. And jealousy is, something that is actually really good if your child's getting jealous to the point where they're telling this child something. So then you would set up scenarios and you would teach your child appropriate ways of dealing with jealousy. Jealousy, just like anything else, if one of us gets really jealous, right, you might say something hurtful to someone. We're just adults and we can disguise it much better, and some people will say something hurtful, another person will do something passive aggressive. It really all just goes back to jealousy. And what is jealousy? Jealousy is fear of not being good enough, right? It always goes back to fear. It's kind of like, okay, so if he's playing with someone else, I'm jealous, which means I feel like I'm probably not good enough, and now I will take my internal fear and turn it outwards, and it'll become aggression, and now I'm going to tell this other child, get lost, I don't want to be your friend anymore, you're just not my friend, something mean because they hurt me, they made me jealous. This is the process your child's going through. Well, let's break it down and teach your child, don't fear, because not only will you not lose the friendship, but here, in case you do fear, here are things you can do. You can go play with another child for a little while and then come back to your friend. You can go just to another part of the playground and maybe run around if you're really angry and get it out. You can go and do a solo activity and maybe do some deep breathing that'll calm you down. You could go to your friend and say, hey, can I play with you guys? Like, join their group, or do you want to come back and finish up doing? There's like a billion different socially appropriate like responses that your child could make.
Right.
And that's what you have to do. You have to teach the child socially appropriate responses that will replace what he's doing, but always remember the function of what he's doing. The reason he's doing that is because he's angry and he's scared. He's scared that he's going to lose his friend, and he's angry because fear turned outwards as anger. So, make sure you give him a way to calm his fear. Make sure you give him different ways of handling his anger. And those are all the things that kind of go into planning a program for that.
Okay, awesome advice.
It's the principles of behavior analysis. They don't change. It's always figure out why.
Right.
But it's just that when it gets to these abstract, sort of more advanced behaviors, we forget that there's always some fear behind it, and we have to address the fear.
And I think the rest of us don't. Like when you just define jealousy for me, I'm a 50-year-old woman. Nobody's ever defined jealousy for me before. If you asked me, I would have said wanting what somebody else has, not being afraid.
Well, the reason that you want what somebody else has is because the thing they have in your mind makes them better than you, which means I'm not good enough. It always just goes back to yourself, right?
Well, I mean, that totally resonates with me that that's what it is, but nobody has ever languaged that for me before.
Right.
And so now, as a mom, knowing that that's what it is in my child, I would have a different set of tools to work on that with.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely, and I think that when we specifically, if we focus on ourselves, a lot of times I try to really apply these things to myself and see how it makes sense or works for me. So if I become jealous of something, what I tend to do, or my way of going about it, is I think I redirect my energy onto something else. In other words, the moment that I start feeling I'm not good enough, which is really the core of jealousy or core of any fear, I start to somehow better myself in some other area. And I really divert my focus onto some other area, and I really work at improving myself in that area. And of course, just being able to sit with the concept of not being good enough is bettering yourself somehow. But I mean, that's too advanced for our kids. So it's really just about teaching them how good they are in other things, perhaps, or with other kids, perhaps. Just making them feel safe and self-loved and, assured that nothing is going to happen because their friend talked to someone else. I mean, my daughter, I remember she had a friend when she was younger and who would just really cry and get really upset if my daughter talked to anyone else. Yeah. And that happens with kids. That really does happen a lot with kids. And it's just about going back to, gosh, there's so much in this, I want to make sure my child understands what true friendship means, right? And then I'd want to make sure my child realizes that those factors, perhaps you sit with the child depending on the level of functioning, and you write out, okay, friendship is being able to talk about everything, always being together in these scenarios when we're scared, blah, 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 and then making sure our child sees that none of those factors go away just because the other child talks to someone else or spends time with someone else. Right. And that'll help our child see, oh, okay, my friendship isn't actually going away. It's still there. I just have to wait. Right. There's so many factors to teaching that.
This is really good stuff, and it's good for all of us. I'm just really struck by that. We should take a break to give you a moment to breathe and have something to drink, and then we're going to come back with more of your questions. Keep them coming in on our live feature. Stick with us. Have you ever noticed that when you do something nice for someone else, you feel great afterwards? It's because in that moment you've shown kindness and compassion in a world that sometimes can seem chaotic and isolating. Well, this April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to put compassion in action. We all expect others to show compassion to our kids, to us, and to our families. What better way than to show compassion ourselves? That's why I'm asking everyone to do something nice for someone else. If we all take just one act of compassion, who knows? Maybe we can change the world. So watch Autism Live to find out how you can participate in our Compassion in Action campaign. And then make sure you tune in on April 8th when I will shave my head. 5 for a young dad with cancer. That's my way of taking action and compassion. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Feel the love and the breeze. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I am learning so much. You expand my mind every time you come in. And I was just starting to say to you, I'm glad that these are recorded so that I can go back and watch.
Oh, yeah,
because you
nice.
give so much information that I think I need to go back over it.
And sometimes it's really hard to give concrete information on these things because it's just too long. We'd be talking about it for hours, so I have to kind of go and generalize the whole thing. But the truth is the thing that makes it successful is being able to break everything down into steps and then build upon those steps in the correct order. But really, I have found that a lot of what leads to success with our kids, no matter what it is teaching them ways to overcome fear. And that just really helps them a lot.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, we did have a question come in from somebody who's on the spectrum. They wrote in, I'm 22, autistic, and I want to work a job, but I don't drive. I live with my mom and dad, and they don't want me to ride the bus. I want to know if there's a place where I can go to live and learn how to live on my own. Like a school. I know, heartbreaking, right?
Just so sweet, amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow.
The part as a mom that I hear in that is that here's somebody who's wanting to go and wanting to do things, and I hear the fear of the parents.
Yeah, exactly.
That they don't want me to ride the bus, and I get that.
Yeah,
I totally get that, and I don't want to be that parent.
Right.
I'm afraid that I will be.
No, you won't, but I won't let you be.
Well, thank you.
But
it may take that.
But the truth is, we all go through, we protect our kids in different ways, right? I mean, my daughter right now has gotten accepted to colleges on the East Coast, and I'm still crossing my fingers for UC Santa Barbara because I want her to stay out here. But so we all do that. But obviously, as a parent of a child with autism, you do it 1,000 times more because you've been trained to do it 1,000 times more, right? So you are the eyes and the ears of your child for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know how to help this individual. I don't know of communities. There used to be, like Devereaux used to be a community where you could learn a job and live there safely and so on and so forth, and it was fabulous. I thought I was kind of sad when it shut down, but there might be communities. I would certainly be happy to look into it for this individual and see if there are communities that you can safely live there and do various things. But for the meantime, if there's any way that you can get your parents to go perhaps meet with a psychologist or a behavior analyst or someone who can help them understand what your true capabilities are and that you have this desire, then I would say that's what you do. Try to find someone who can talk with your parents and try to convince them to give you a little bit more freedom and to not be afraid. Now, perhaps where you live, you could start by finding a part-time type of job that you can do within walking distance. So perhaps, or you can maybe bike somewhere nearby. Maybe you can start by offering neighbors to do something for them. And then as your parents see that you are capable of holding down a responsibility, then they will be more willing to let you gradually expand to maybe taking the bus or even learning how to drive.
Yeah, I'm really struck by, we had Temple Grandin on the show earlier this week, and she was talking about how important it is to get kids doing things, volunteering or doing something. And I know everybody's living situation is different, and sometimes you're in a more rural area, but she was talking about her upbringing and how her mother forced her to do things like sew for a woman who lived down the street.
Yes.
And I had forgotten, I don't know how I could have forgotten, but my mother, when I was 12, had me working at the woman who lived next door to us at her house, and I would do cleaning tasks for her. And it was maybe an hour a week, but I got paid a little bit of money for it, and it taught me a certain amount of responsibility. She had me polishing her silver, which we did not have silver, and so this was the first time I'd ever done it, and I was not good at it. So it wasn't something that she kept me doing for a very long period of time. But it was sort of a beginning for me.
Right.
And I hadn't really thought about that for all of our kids, that sometimes having, even if it's just a friend and saying, I'll trade with you, send your child to my house and I'll send my child to your house, let's build some skills.
Absolutely.
There would be a kindness to our kids and a kindness to us as well.
Definitely. And also it would just be, learning to take some responsibility.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's so important too. I mean, as we're talking, I'm thinking I need to do more of this with my kids as well. But the reason this email touches me so much, Shannon, is because the individual is writing himself and saying, like, I want to kind of get out there and my parents are too protective right now.
Yeah.
And that's just so touching. I love that. I think it's fabulous.
Absolutely. It's very moving.
I just think that you have to understand that your parents are overly protective because they've grown with you that way. They've been taught to protect you from all kinds of dangers throughout your life, and perhaps they have a hard time right now actually understanding that you can take the bus and so on. So yes, there are a lot of programs that will teach you how to take the bus and exactly how, everything having to do with vocational skills, job-related skills, but I would say start slow, and maybe now you're shaping your parents' behavior. Start slow, do something, maybe put up a sign, go to the neighbors' houses or ask your parents if it's okay to do that. Offer them something you can do, maybe mowing the lawn, maybe just cleaning up for them, whatever it is. And then as you do that, I'm sure your parents will see, oh, he's more capable than we thought.
Isn't that amazing? I'm really struck by, this is something that's come up so many times this week, the idea that we're constantly teaching our kids how to take perspective.
Right.
And yet it seems that there comes a point when they become the best perspective takers because we're asking them to take everyone else's perspective in terms of what they can and cannot do, should and should not do. There's a bit of irony in that to me.
There is irony. This is a big topic for me this week, too. It's funny because I've been noticing, like we started to do actually a lot of, we're changing some of the training that we do for our supervisory staff. And we had a training last week. I'm not, perhaps one of the research folks or someone else who attended the training with me already talked to you about the ACT.
We had Dr. Coyne come on the show,
Great.
and we're going to have more people talking about what actually happened. But she dropped in to tell us, an overview of what you guys were doing, which was very amazing.
Very good. And as we were going through this training, the whole time I was thinking to myself, how am I going to incorporate this training into our process with our supervisors?
Right.
Because it's not just about, it's really, to me at least, and I told Lisa this, Dr. Coyne, that for me it's not really just about learning techniques that we can use to help our parents, because all of ACT is about acceptance and then commitment to doing things that will improve your life and keep you going and so on. And for me, what came out during the training was I need to teach this particular skill to my supervisors, and they have to be able to take it into their own lives and use it in their own lives if they're going to be effective at teaching it to parents.
Yeah.
So as I went through this process of how do I incorporate this into a training for my supervisory staff, then I realized, I need to start by just teaching my supervisory staff to be better at taking the perspective of parents. Okay, so some of us, of course, have kids, and some of the supervisors do as well, and more every day,
right,
as we age. But some of my supervisors are pretty young. They're straight out of, they get their master's and their board certification, and they're in their mid-20s maybe, or very early 30s, and don't have kids. And much less, not only don't have kids, but don't have kids on the spectrum.
Right.
So they don't really, it's very hard, and they've just entered the world of autism, so it's hard for them to understand the perspective of a parent when they're telling a parent something like, well, it's just necessary for you to do this, and these are the things you have to do. And by the way, I want you to be on your game 24/7, and you know,
right.
it's ridiculous, you know. And in some, the parents sometimes will just try hard, and then get depressed because it's impossible to succeed with all of that, or they'll just become upset about it and offended and say, like, how does this 25-year-old want to tell me what to do, you know? All of that exists, and it's very real. And unless the supervisors have the ability to have the other person's perspective, which then with that comes empathy, right? Empathy, the development of empathy is being able to take someone else's perspective and feel for them. So this whole perspective-taking thing is massive, you know? And I came to realize over the last couple of weeks how the most, if I really want to put my finger on it, it's kind of interesting. It's the combination, like being successful in life. I think now, I've always said it has to do with overcoming your own fears, but the second most important thing is having empathy, being able to see things through other people's eyes. And not just empathy, but just being able to see their perspectives. Right. Because, oh my gosh, that allows you to understand pretty much everything they're doing. Yeah. If you really can see things from their perspective, you can understand exactly why they're doing the things they're doing, and to some extent you can predict what they're going to do. Right. And I find throughout my day, I do that constantly. I am constantly trying to, and you know, disagreement comes up between, let's say, a parent and a supervisor or staff, or between two staff members, or between a funding source and whatever. Right. I have to take a moment and just see each side, their perspective, and it immediately becomes clear to me how to solve the problem. Because that's, I think, so, you know, talking about our kids having that much empathy and being able to be fantastic at perspective taking, yes, I think they're getting this incredible skill which is going to help them in all of their lives forever. Like just being able to take other people's perspectives, I think is fantastic.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I do see that my son is quickly becoming so much better at it than I ever thought of being. Yeah. I'd shared a couple of weeks ago that we all had been out too long without eating, and everybody had it, and we came into the house and everybody was just kind of and my son said, you know what, we're all tired, we're all a little hot, and we need to eat something.
Are you serious?
No, and he's 9. And the fact that he had the ability to say that, and I just turned around and went, well, that's exactly what's happening now.
That's exactly right.
And the fact that he saw that both my husband and I were crabby.
Yeah, and that totally got it.
You know,
didn't you say to me also one other time he had said something like, or was it you or was it Nat? Someone told me, one of the moms told me that the son turned around and said something like, I think you're stressed out, you should take a deep breath or something like that. You know, like
my child says to me, do you need to take a moment?
Yeah, exactly.
And not to bore everybody with stories about my kid, but last year I went to watch him do a presentation that he was doing with another child in the class, and they'd had a really rough time. Yeah. And the other child that was assigned to him was somebody who was really type A, you know, going to get it done, and they had to put together a speech, they had to memorize it, deliver it to the class, share, answer questions, and build a 3D model. Right. And this other child was just about at his wit's end with my son. He was very frustrated with him and felt that it was hard to keep on task. But they got everything done, did a brilliant presentation, and afterwards they were answering the questions and showing the model. And they were the first team to go in the presentation. And so my son was trying to hold the model with the other boy, and the other boy kept taking it away from him, right? And Jem, you know, kept on saying, well, you know, it's my turn to hold too. And then he gave up a little bit on that, and they started answering the questions, and my son kept trying to get a word in edgewise, and the other boy kept answering the question. And again, my son tried, and he tried a couple of times, and then he gave up. And I was like, oh, you needed to persist. You just needed to persist a little bit more. And then I watched all the other kids who were all completely neurotypical go through the same thing where they were crabbing at each other, but the other kids persisted and would say, it's my turn, you're talking over me, and they would just be crabby at the other one, and the other one would go, oh, okay. Right. Well, we walked out to the parking lot afterwards, and I said, you know, you did such a good job, I'm so proud of you, you so wonderful, but you know, I'm a little concerned that you didn't stick up for yourself enough, you needed to say something. And he said, well, you know, the truth is Mom, that kind of thing is really important to him, and it's not as important to me. And he said, I was trying to get a word in edgewise, but he said it's really important to him to have control of those kinds of things, and so I just decided to let him. And I stopped in the parking lot and said, my 8-year-old on the spectrum took the perspective of the 8-year-old who's so brilliant, who wasn't taking my kid's perspective.
That's right.
What's wrong with this picture?
That's
or
right.
What's right with this picture?
Right.
And then I hugged him and said, you are the best.
Right.
That's, you know.
It's amazing. It's just
But
amazing.
I did say to him, it's great that you thought about it from his point of view, but I want you to remember that you're important too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you would have enjoyed it too.
Absolutely.
So you did a great job, and I love that you thought about him, but I want you to stick up for yourself too.
Yeah, sure.
And he did say, well, I saw all the other kids yelling at their partners afterwards. I think if he had gone second, maybe he would have a little bit more, but amazing. All right, I've waxed
But I mean,
poetic
how
about
incredible is that, first of all, that he's able to just, oh my gosh, that just really gave me goosebumps. And then also, how sweet is he, that how aware is he that he says, oh yeah, I saw the other kids doing that. So like he immediately learns from his environment constantly.
Yes.
You know, next time he's going to probably stand up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he does.
You know.
It's interesting, though, how he will, in some circumstances, do that, in other circumstances not, right? You know, because he's still 9.
Yeah,
so,
oh, absolutely. But I mean, it's, and I see that with, it's funny because I have 3 kids, you know, and you see it with your kids just by their age difference, you know. So you see usually the little ones are much more centered onto themselves, and the older ones are much more giving because they've learned to give.
Yeah.
And I think that I love the fact that I hear Jem doing that, just because I mean, yes, you don't want them to lose opportunities, but quite honestly, humility is like amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that our kids learn that and can step back and say, it just seemed more important to him than it is to me is crazy.
It is. I will admit that I worry, and I see that part of his struggle at this point is because the kids aren't thinking about other kids at this age.
No, they're not.
They just aren't. And so they're going to run right over the top of him. And that worries me. If I could, I would never fast forward these years. I want to enjoy these years. But for him emotionally, if I could fast forward and have him be in college and not have to put up with all of the other things that I see the other kids
happening.
You know, the things that the way they talk to each other, the negative things that they say to each other. It's a rough time.
I know, but it's a really good learning time for him. Okay. I mean, I know that my daughter, Nikki, my oldest, went through many years of coming home and explaining those types of things to me and just being shocked at how kids treat each other.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay, because ultimately what you want for your child is happiness.
Yes.
You know, and we actually achieve happiness. It's funny because we think we are going to be happy by accomplishing and getting more and more and more of things and position and success. But happiness actually comes from moments like that, where it's kind of like, to be honest with you, I'm happier because I just don't care as much.
Right.
It comes from serenity. Yeah. You know, and that's a pretty serene moment you have there.
So. We'll spread that out to everything else. That's what we need to do. Spread that out.
No question.
Okay. Right? Okay, here's, we have time, I think, for just one more. How do I get my child to stop whining? 11, very high functioning, whines whenever we put any kind of demand on him, drives my husband crazy.
That's awesome. It's just so funny. I'm sorry, we're not laughing at the situation. It's just like
the reality
of it. The reality of it. Yes,
we're all in the same boat.
I think I whine when I have too much on me, you know?
I know I whine.
So it goes, I guess the best way to approach it is just look at it from a behavioral perspective again. It's like, okay, so clearly he's whining because you're placing a demand on him. And perhaps you need to make sure you continue placing demands on him and not reduce your demands because he's whining.
Okay.
But also teach him a different out. So why is he whining? That's the response that you want to kind of reduce. And he's whining because, I don't know, he doesn't like the thing he's supposed to do, or it's not rewarding enough for him, or what are the other reasons, the function of it.
Right.
Now give him an out. So find some other expression that he could use. What does he achieve by whining? Let's hope he doesn't achieve anything. Let's hope if you don't give in, then the whining won't have a function of getting him out of the task anymore. That's very important. Okay. It will either go away on its own, or it'll just become a habit that has really nothing to do with the demand being placed, in which case you can divert it to some more appropriate behavior. So you can just tell him, instead of whining, perhaps you want to think about frustration, or perhaps you want to write down, I really don't want to do this, but then do it. Or perhaps you want to say, okay, I really don't feel like doing this, but I'll do it as long as you give me something. I mean, that's what our typically developing kids do. When they don't want to do something, they'll negotiate for a better reward.
Right.
And so those are the different types of things. You can't just ignore the whining, because clearly it's his way of saying, I just don't want to do this right now.
Right.
And then you make sure that if he vocalizes appropriately, that, oh, can I do it in 5 minutes? Or can I do it tomorrow? Or something that works for you, then you do give in. Then you allow that to happen, because now what you're doing is you're not reinforcing the whining, you're reinforcing the more appropriate way of expressing, I don't want to do this right now. And that's the behavioral answer.
I just have to say, because we're out of time, how much I enjoy this hour.
I do too.
It's
awesome.
life-changing to me every time. I have so much to think about, and I hope that you guys enjoyed as much, and I know you've written and have said that. So we're going to say goodbye to Dr. Granpeesheh for another
week. See you next week.
And we're going to take a break and go to the A Word. This is an amazing documentary, ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. And at the point in the series where we're watching, he's had ABA, intensive ABA in his home for about 10 months. So we see a great deal of progress with this young man. But as in all things, as he acquires new skills, there's more to do. Challenging behaviors will crop up that need to be addressed, and there are more lessons to learn. So take a look. This is the A Word, and don't forget, right afterwards, we're going to be joined by Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. So take a look at the A Word.
Jack Riley starts his day with Jessica and ABA therapy at 8 a.m. Each session he has lasts around 2 hours, with a total amount of therapy of 40 hours per week. This includes occupational therapy, speech therapy, and ABA therapy.
What do you want to play with today?
Train.
That's what I thought. Yay, there you go. There's trains and tracks.
So what's an average of programs you try to get done in a session with a kid?
I try to incorporate a lot of things as much as I can. Like, for instance, if he was playing with trains, I'd incorporate functional pretend play. So that's just basically teaching him how to play with the toy appropriately, the way it's supposed to be played, building a track and having him move, and using vocalizations. Choo-choo, let's go, all aboard, things like that.
Choo-choo.
All right, say all aboard.
All aboard.
All right. Because he's so little, we're building a lot of language. It's language, 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 all the time. So we work on banding, so having him request for things for me.
What train? What trains? What track?
We can also work on tacting, which is having him label, like the colors, the names of the trains.
That's the trains. It's Thomas.
It's Thomas. Also, we can work on gaining attention. I would withhold the preferred trains or tracks and have him tap my shoulder to get more pieces.
He wants to go.
Hi, what do you want?
What train?
You want trains. We can also work on compliance, like come here and give it to me. Wait. Come here. So there's a lot of things I can kind of incorporate, at the same time in one sitting. And as far as his behaviors, I haven't really seen anything. Hey, sit up. Well, just now. Yeah, with his visual stereotypy, his is just looking at things from a different angle or sideways or upside down. But he rarely engages in that except just now.
What?
Pickers.
Huh?
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm filming you.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, bye.
Who is that?
Jack.
Jack? Jack who?
Jack Riley.
Where's your nose? Where's your ears? Where's your eyes? Where's your chin? Ooh.
Where's your teeth? Is that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your head? Where's your tummy? Okay, I'm gonna need you now. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a hat?
Clothes.
Clothes. Oh my goodness, you're so smart.
Jessica and Jack Riley are continuing to work on categories.
Give me vehicle. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Give me vehicle. Nice. What's a fire truck?
Fire truck.
What is it?
Vehicle.
It's a vehicle. Cool. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a dress?
Clothes.
Clothes. Nice. Here you go. Here's your sticker. Give me furniture. Nice job. What's a table? Furniture. Perfect. Give me clothes. Good job. What's a jacket? What's a jacket? No, what's a jacket? No. Hey, hey. What's a jacket? No, what's a jacket? It's
It's taken.
What is it?
It's clothes.
It's clothes. So what's a jacket?
Clothes.
Clothes. Good job. Here, put Tigger on. Yeah, you're all done. You want your trains or bed?
Taste.
Okay, go play with your train.
Okay, I'll go to Bob. See you later.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm always thrilled when you're here.
I know, it's always fun to be with you.
And you look so pretty in your purple.
You got purple on too, girl.
I do have some purple.
Yeah,
on.
I didn't have time to put my infinity pen on. I didn't have time to do much of anything as I ran through here. You know,
Well,
hair's still wet. And there's my phone.
There's the phone. I was saying during the break that sometimes the phone rings in here because it happens.
Okay.
And we're autism moms, and it's all real life, and we're here live, and I hope you guys appreciate that sometimes that's really what it is us live.
Well, I'm sure everybody out there can relate, Shannon.
Yes, I would think so.
There are days when I have to check, to make sure that I don't have, toothpaste drilling from my mouth. And do I, by the way?
No, you do not.
Okay. And, they're just those days, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've shared before on the show that I would come to pick up my son from school, and when he was in kindergarten, he'd get out at noon, and sometimes I'd be so busy trying to get a couple of things done during those couple of hours that he was there, and I would run out of the house and not realize, and my hair would literally be standing straight up on end. And my hair can do that. I have crazy woman hair.
Right.
And finally, my child, this is how I knew he was getting better. He said, "You're embarrassing me."
Oh, well, that's always a good sign that he's getting better.
It was quite the blessing. But when your child says, "You are embarrassing me,"
he's
take
feeling
care of your personal hygiene, woman.
That's right. Yeah.
He didn't use those words. That was a little advanced. But he noticed that his friends were going, "Your mom's hair is crazy."
Yeah, your mom looks like a weird person.
A hooligan is what my mom would have said. You look like, I don't even know what a hooligan is, but that was a phrase that my mother would use. You look like a hooligan. In any case, we're here, and neither one of us looks like a hooligan today.
No, we actually look color coordinated, which I don't know how that happened. There's some harmonic convergence.
It's our Vulcan mind meld that we have going on. In any case,
let's talk about, you got the In the News segments together.
Yes. A lot of exciting stuff going on. First of all, one that I did not know, because my pop culture, you are much more in tune
than you,
with
and
pop
I'm
culture.
shocked I didn't know this, and I was thrilled when I read it.
Okay, so what we're talking about, there is a show on MTV that it's in its second season now. It's called World of Jenks, and I had never heard of it before, but this young filmmaker who last season he went around the world and he documented for a year. He would go into 12 different subcultures and videotape what was happening with them. And all things for that generation that's 20-somethings, right?
Okay.
Which is why I didn't hear about it, because I'm 20-something.
Right.
And I'm like old enough to be the grandparents of the 20-somethings.
It reminds me of the very first show, Real World, MTV's Real World. Okay.
Absolutely. And in his travels around the world that year, he came across a young man named Chad, who is 21 this year, on the autism spectrum. They had such a good time with Chad that they decided for the second season that they were going to delve into 3 individual stories and really spend some time instead of going here, there, and everywhere. And they chose Chad to focus on, and then 2 other individuals, a young woman who has a very aggressive type of cancer that she's dealing with, a very talented fashion designer, got a whole life that she wants to lead, but it keeps being, stymied by cancer. Chad, who has autism and is in a very important year in his life because he's graduating from school, he's in a relationship for the first time.
So he's obviously very high functioning.
He's very high functioning young man, but and is able to verbalize. On one of the clips that I watched last night, he said basically, this autism thing really bites, although he didn't use quite that nice a language, and said, it's really, sometimes this is really,
hard. Yeah.
And then the third story they're following is a young man who's a dancer who is from a very violent neighborhood and with a lot of shootings, and is trying to use his dance to change things in his neighborhood.
This all sounds great. These characters seem, they're not characters, they're people.
Yes.
These individuals sound like they have so many complexities to them.
Absolutely.
Like real life complexities. And I have to say, a lot of the network shows just really do stereotype, don't they? And they're so silly.
But I can't wait. This premiered, this second season premiered on Monday. It's on 11 p.m. on MTV, and I didn't get a chance to see that, and it's not up on demand yet, but it will be, I'm told, by the end of the week. But you guys can start catching it and show some support for Chad. A whole year that they followed him.
That's great. And I can't wait to see this.
Especially following him graduating from school, trying to figure out whether he was going to live on his own, and getting a job. And I know a little bit about how it turns out.
Don't do a spoiler.
I'm not going to do a spoiler.
Okay.
But I can't wait to see this.
Okay.
And he's a funny guy.
Oh, good.
Which is really awesome.
Good. Well, this is something certainly you and I always have on our minds, is having high-functioning children with autism. If somebody were to ask me today, do you think Wyatt will live alone? I don't know if I can answer that. What about you?
It's interesting because we were just talking with Dr. Granpeesheh about a young woman who wrote in and said, I'm 22 and I want to work a job, and my parents, don't want me to take the bus. And I said, I'm afraid I'm going to be that parent.
Yeah.
We talk all the time to about when he goes away to college and when he gets married and when he has kids.
So you do.
So I try to put paid to that always, but in my gut, I am terrified that not that he won't be able to do it, but that I'm going to be afraid that he can't.
Exactly. Well, there are so many issues there. Maybe let's get a guest in here maybe to talk about that more.
Yes.
In detail about the psychological aspects for moms.
Yeah.
How we might be limiting our kids. This is really funny. And, okay, we're taking a little diversion here, but...
That's okay.
Okay. Maybe we'll spend some time on this topic for a minute. A very life-changing moment for me was taking a flight back to New York. I was going back actually to to attend, I think, an Act Day for Military Families event. And I met a woman on the plane, and immediately I knew that her son, who was in his early 20s, by looking at him, darling boy, I knew he had autism. And I could tell that she was your classic autism mom in the way that she dealt with him, the way she talked to him. And I could hear little snippets of the conversation. They were very kind. They said their names. And at one point, he got up to go to the bathroom, and before he did, he said, he was talking to her, and he said, but Mom, I worry about you. I don't want you to live alone. I know I live right up the street and all this. And then he's like, I worry about you. I worry about you. And he got up to use the restroom, and she kind of shook her head, and she looked at me, and she said, autism. And I said, I knew that. And I said, my name is Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson. I have a son with autism. He's 9 at the time. And I knew immediately, but you wouldn't know unless you were somebody really in that world. And so for the rest of the flight, we talked.
Right.
And she told me how she had always wanted a boy.
Yeah.
And they adopted her son. And she got her little boy. And then when he was diagnosed, and this was, 20-some years ago, nobody really knew how to handle it, including her husband, who left. And she worked her whole life as a nurse. And she, let's call him Chad. Chad was a cool kid, he really was. And she said, I asked her when he had his headphones on, I was watching a movie, how old is he? She says he's 26, and I never thought he'd be on his own, but he is. He's in a group setting, and there's a person that lives with the group. They all have their separate apartments. He is in biking distance of me, and she said, I was the one that had the biggest fears, not him. He was ready. He was ready to go and do this, and he has a job during the day, kind of a simplistic job. And she looked at me and she said, I used to always say, I want my son to grow up to be happy, first and foremost. And she said, and you know what, he is.
Isn't that amazing?
And then she said, and it's kind of funny, I always said I wanted a little boy. And I kind of have. He'll always be my little boy, more so than other sons will be little boys, because I'm still mommy, and I'm still, in many ways, he still clings to me. But she said, I guess I got everything I ever wanted.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Now, see, we're all going to sit here and be weepy together. But it is amazing, the perspective of, what is and what our fears are. We just talked a lot in the last hour about fears. And Dr. Granpeesheh was saying that, she has come to that the two things in life that determine whether you're successful are overcoming your fears and having empathy.
Right.
And we were talking about how a lot of times as our kids grow, they have so much work on taking perspective that they for him to be sitting there and saying to her about, you living alone.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Because he's now, there's an innocence about him. I get the little boy thing.
Right.
There's an innocence about him, but he's taking her perspective.
Yes. It was a lovely exchange, one of those ones that you remember forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that as moms of children on the spectrum, sharing our journeys with each other is just so important.
I absolutely agree.
So should we take a little break
and we'll come back? I think we should take a break. Let's come back. We've got more stories in the news, but let's take a break and we'll be right back. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Hi, welcome back. Welcome back.
We had a question that came in before we get to these other stories that somebody wanted for you to answer.
Okay.
They said, regarding hilarity, could Nancy answer it? It should be showing on your screen right now. Someone was kind enough to tell me that extremes in emotions in children could point to bipolar disorder. Now I'm really concerned.
Okay. First thing I would say is, don't get worried, just get concerned.
Yeah.
Worrying is like negative prayer. It's a good one to remember.
Things I'm learning today.
Okay. Worry is a form of negative prayer. When you worry, you're really putting a lot of effort into a negative thought pattern.
Right.
So take the worry off the plate. Concerned is good.
Right.
It means somewhere in your gut is talking to you, I should have this checked out, and you should.
Yeah.
There are child psychologists that you can go to for an assessment, or really a child psychiatrist probably for bipolar,
right.
Because medications that I think are approved for children can help with bipolar disorder if they have it. It's got to be diagnosed.
Right.
And yes, autism also has many comorbid conditions.
Yes.
And, I realized that my brother with Down syndrome was autistic as well. I mean, we have a lot of double diagnosis there.
Right.
So, once again, it takes a professional, it takes an assessment, and I happen to have had a mother with bipolar disorder, and I know a lot of the signs, and the testing is pretty extensive for it. You have to go through like a 300-page questionnaire, the parent does, and there's ways to find that out. But see a child psychiatrist. If you're that concerned, it's worth going. It can't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's entirely possible, equally possible that it is a case or not.
Right.
So
and it could be nothing. But I always say better than wondering, find out.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so great writing in and great answering of that question. Okay, we had some other stories in the news that we wanted to talk about. There was a big story that came out, and the headline was "Study Offers Promising News for Autism Speech Delays." And this was a study that came out of Kennedy Krieger's Center for Autism and Related Disorders in Baltimore. And basically what they did was they studied data on individuals that had documented delays in speech.
Because the old wisdom was that if a child did not speak by 4 or 5, I read this in the study, that they were not going to learn to speak.
Right.
Which is terrifying for a parent.
It absolutely is.
Now, I can tell you personally, I happen to know that is wrong because having been around many children who are nonverbal at 3 or 4 that have had intensive therapy and some without.
Yeah.
My son's best friend, who's on the spectrum, did not utter a word until he was 4.
Yeah.
And later it appeared he had Asperger's, but they were all of the people diagnosing him were saying, well, he can't have Asperger's because Asperger's kids talk early. And he happened to have auditory processing, which caused him not to be able to speak early.
Okay.
So he, in fact, does have Asperger's.
There you go. Very interesting.
He wasn't able to show that classic sign of Asperger's, which is talking early.
Right.
So just because your child is nonverbal at 4 or 5 doesn't mean they'll never speak. Right?
Absolutely. And that's what they wanted to make sure that everybody knew from this study, that's that's really the takeaway. I thought what was really interesting is that a total of 5 to 10% of preschool children have some sort of speech delay, which is higher than I would have imagined. They don't all end up having a diagnosis of autism, by the way. There are lots of different things. And for the purposes of the study, they looked at a total of 535 children ages 8 to 17.
Okay.
Some of them had an autism diagnosis, and others had severe language delays at age 4.
Okay.
That didn't end up being autism because there are other things that cause a speech delay. And all of the kids range from not being able to speak a single word to being not being able to utter a phrase without verbs. So sometimes we have kids that will babble and say something, but it's not meaningful.
Yes.
So there was no communication that was going on. But what they discovered was that a total of 47%, almost 50% of those kids with intervention went on to be classified as completely fluent speakers. So that's almost 50% of them with intervention, and a total of 2/3 of them were able to have verbal speech with a minimum of a 3-word phrase. So at least 2/3 of them had functional speaking communication capabilities later on. And the whole purpose of the study, supposedly the takeaway for all of us, is to be more hopeful, so that if you have a child who's not speaking, that you do not feel like all is lost.
Never feel like all is lost. I think there's always hope, and we call some of these things miracle stories. They're miracles in that they're amazing things happening with our kids, but they're not isolated miracles. They are becoming more and more the mainstream. And even with assisted technology, it used to be a miracle that we would discover a very bright child in there that could never speak, but then all of a sudden could communicate these brilliant things. That is happening more and more, where we're thinking it could become the norm. And who knows where the next step in this assisted technology is with getting some of those brilliant kids trapped actually expressing.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably where the next frontier of this is going.
We're already beginning to see that, and it's a very exciting time, and we're going to be covering a lot more of that on the show. It's very exciting what assisted technology can do.
Yeah.
But I think, one of the things that being an autism parent taught me was I had watched other kids acquire language my whole life as an aunt and as a friend, and I had just watched it, and it's miraculous when any child speaks. And I think that for most families, the child says, Mama or Dada, and that miracle is acknowledged. And everybody goes, they spoke, and isn't this wonderful? And all the other developments of language that happen, they're all miraculous in all kids. It's just that everybody stops noticing it. Whereas one of the greatest gifts that I feel was given to me as an autism parent was that the ability to not notice the miracles was taken away from me. And it's one of the reasons why in our home we talk about our everyday autism miracles. I have a radio show that's named that.
Everyday Autism Miracles.
Because it was like somebody pulled the veil and said, no, you're going to have to see the miracles. Every time, he would learn something new.
There's an advance. We do that all the time. We are constantly looking at each other when Wyatt is doing something that is just so on par with where his development should be, or when he makes a big gain and expresses something that we know is just a huge milestone for him. And it was even the other night, he was like, wanting to continue to watch Harry Potter, which was age appropriate. He was into it. He was talking about the characters, and I'm like, we're trying to get him off the computer, and I'm like, thank God it's not Thomas still at age 11, right?
There you go.
These little things that happen, and you'll look at your spouse and you'll say, did you hear that, or did you see that? And and they are our little miracles. Thanks for reminding us of that.
Absolutely are. And there's enough ugly stuff that we have to deal with right along this path, so we need to participate and celebrate the good things.
That's right.
And that is a good thing to celebrate. So we had a couple of other things. I heard about this last week after it happened. An 11-year-old boy who's being hailed as a hero. He has
Michael
autism.
Dupois, I believe his name is pronounced.
I believe that's how you pronounce it. 11 years old, on the spectrum, has an aide.
Okay.
And his aide was was not feeling well. They went to go have breakfast together. That's something he does with his aide in the morning at school. And she was sweating profusely and she was confused. And this 11-year-old on the spectrum noticed and realized, because his grandmother has autism, he saw this.
You mean has diabetes?
Has diabetes, excuse me. Grandmother does not have autism.
Okay. Has diabetes.
She has diabetes. So he recognized the symptoms and acted immediately, went and got her some things to eat, got her some banana bread, some milk, and some juice, and got them to her so that she could begin eating them. And as soon as she began eating, he called for adult help. And somebody came over and saw what was happening, and they called the paramedics, who came, and they were able to get her regulated, and they sent her home for the day. But really, she could have gone into a coma. Heaven only knows what could have happened.
The aide was aided by the student who saved her life.
And she has reported that every day that she comes to school now, that he inquires after her health and asks how she's doing. But I love this story for so many different reasons.
It's such a feel-good story.
Oh, it is. And the fact that this young man noticed symptoms from someplace else. It wasn't like, he's going to class every morning. They're saying, here are the warning signs for diabetes. But he was able to pick that up and identify and follow a protocol of what you should do in this circumstance. A bright young man. It tells me a lot about the aide, too.
Yes.
That she's on it and doing a good job with this young man, and the family's doing a good job.
And there's obviously a connection.
Yes.
That he sensed something was wrong. So there's a deeper connection here that's probably intuitive, too.
Yeah.
They talk about even like these aides, these dogs that have lived with people that can tell when they're about to have a heart attack or something like that. I think there was a deep spiritual bond between this young man and his aide as well.
With you about that.
So what a heroic story there, and what a sweet, touching story. I hope that he's getting some wonderful award.
Well, he's certainly gotten a fair amount of attention, but yes, all rewards would be...
He's a hero. He's being called a hero.
He is being hailed as a hero.
He's a fifth-grade hero. And you know what? We need more of those fifth-grade heroes out there for their stories to be told, and more of our children with autism being acknowledged for the amazing things they're doing than just being in the news for some of the research or some of the bad things that are happening around the country with some of our children and some of the stories that, are without hope. I love anytime we get a story like this, we pledge to bring it to your attention.
Absolutely. And we've got another story for you about BPA, but let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back to tell you information that everybody should be made aware of. Stick with us.
Okay, great. Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign the petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're going to do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're going to grab one end and then twist it, and then take the two ends and join them together, and then tape it together. And then I'm going to flip it around and take another piece of tape, and what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
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 With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We're getting caught up on some news stories here and also some personal stories. We're kind of sharing just some things that come up about moments in our lives that have impacted us with other autism moms. And,
Absolutely.
And I have another one of those coming up about my son and opening day of baseball.
Which is very cool.
Yeah. So.
My computer is taking its time. But somebody also wrote in and they said, hey, girlfriends.
Hey, girlfriend. Where wherever you are out there
yes.
in America or the world.
And they said, let me bring it up here. Shannon, I didn't know you had a radio talk show, which sometimes Nancy co-hosts.
I do. I love doing it when I have time. I
know, and when I have time. So they wanted to tell you more. The show is called Everyday Autism Miracles, and you can download it on iTunes for free. And Nancy has been a wonderful guest, and you hosted it yourself for me for a couple of weeks and had some pretty impressive guests.
I had Andrew Wakefield on. It was really interesting. You know what? I think I did a more fair and balanced interview with him than, say, Bill O'Reilly would have done.
I know you did.
Or even Anderson Cooper,
who I tend to love.
Who I used to love before I saw his treatment of Andrew Wakefield. But I just didn't feel like he was fair and balanced. I feel like he was just given to him.
But I thought you gave a very fair and balanced.
Well, good. So you can find that. And
so Everyday Autism
How long have you done that show?
I've done it. I think we're in the third year now. Wow. There's many, many episodes, and so you can find out a whole bunch of information there. It's free. It's just another resource.
Another resource.
And you asked, how do I have the time to do that? I literally don't. I literally don't. And I had to take a little bit of a break from it the last couple of months because I literally don't have enough time.
Right.
So, and I am a crazy person.
That's how you do it.
Now you know. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about BPA because a new study has come out about BPA. And this, you can find the entire article in the Science Daily Digest, that you can Google that online. But in any case, for those of you who don't know what BPA is, and I might pronounce it wrong, but it's bisphenol A. And if you go to the store now, you will see, if you go to buy anything that has any amount of plastic in it, there are a lot of things that are labeled BPA free now. If you go to different Tupperware, even if you buy, for instance, Ziploc bags, they are marked BPA free now. More and more stuff you'll see will say that, and then there are a lot of things that just don't say it, right? Okay, so it's a chemical that's widely found in plastics and resins.
Yeah, a lot of plastic bottles and plastic containers.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Duke medicine researchers recently published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Just came out on February 25th last week. And here is a direct quote from the person who was the head of the study. Our study found that BPA may impair the development of the central nervous system and raises the question as to whether exposure could predispose animals and humans to neurodevelopmental disorders.
Okay. I think that it's clear that this is a dangerous chemical because for the FDA to ban something takes pretty much, you can imagine the bureaucracy involved in banning something because you can imagine the big business lobbying going behind it. So that's a huge thing for something to be banned for the FDA in baby bottles and cups in July 2012.
Yep. So it's not allowed to be in baby bottles or cups.
So that means danger, okay? I think it has been shown, there's been conclusive evidence that it can affect the nervous system, the developing nervous system. So we obviously have a big red flag going up here. So I guess the advice would be stay away from it. When possible, don't freak out.
Don't make yourself crazy.
I will tell you a funny story that, just an interesting aside, that the pediatrician that my son was with, who told me that vaccines don't cause autism and told me to be assured as I got all of his vaccines. And when I chose to not give him his boosters because he had autism and had immune issues and had definitive testing to show he had immune issues. And of course he said, that's up to you, but I don't think this has anything to do with autism. I think bottles. He goes on and on to talk about it. And he's a very educated pediatrician. And he said, what's changed the most in the last 20 years that could contribute to an epidemic? Plastics. He said, you see people walking around like they're in the Sahara out there. With,
I'm one of them, yeah.
But really,
bottle of water. I know.
We did not do this before. No. The amount of plastics, and you're going to get me going on the environment, which I don't want to lose focus because we're talking about autism. And I'm not perfect on this. I mean, I'll go grab the plastic bottle. I I couldn't find Wyatt's lead-free little container for his lunch today. I used 4 plastic bags to put the carrots, the gluten-free crackers, and the sandwich in. Yeah. And I felt like the minute I was doing it, I thought, this is wasteful. This is probably not good to have this in plastic. So while I kept going, because I had limited time, I think we have to be really careful about this. Yeah. And the other thing is, I was not able to breastfeed because Wyatt was adopted. Right. And I can't tell you how many baby bottles I heated up in that microwave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if it's a perfect storm, if autism is the perfect storm and you take all these things, put BPA in there as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I've always been somebody who's been BPA aware and a little concerned, but selectively. I am somebody who's walking around with a bottle of water, I have a bottle of water in here today. But I did get, and it just has to go through the dishwasher, a new bottle, a water bottle that is glass. Yes. And it is covered with this fabulous sock, this neoprene sock, so that it is hopefully shatterproof. We'll see. I'll carry it around for a couple weeks. We'll see. Completely dishwasher safe for all of it, and I'm very excited about that. I'm figuring out what to do for my child because he takes a water bottle to school.
I get the stainless steel. With his name on it.
You know what I don't know, and I need to ask is, does stainless steel have aluminum?
It does not.
Okay. Well,
apparently, there's one. Okay, if anybody knows anything about this, they can write us. But to my knowledge, there is I know Whole Foods sells bottles that are from Switzerland. I forgot the make. Right. They have no harmful metals in them, and they don't leach in any way.
Okay, great.
Okay? So I suggest that. Glass is tough, as we know, because with kids they can break. Right. So this takes a little discipline, but what I try to do, I try to be good about it and take my bottle by that Swiss company, and as soon as I'm done with it, either rinse it out, wash it right there with really hot water, and put it, to drain, so I can have it ready the next morning. Right. And it just takes a little more discipline.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's something though that we can all do.
But here's the thing that I was made aware of actually on the radio show that I did not know before. When you get a receipt now, whenever somebody hands you a receipt, they're coated in BPA. Did you know that?
No.
It's on thermal paper. Okay. And all of those little receipt things, and most stores, all of them don't have, but I'll tell you how you know the difference. You know how when you take a receipt and you put it near heat and it turns black? Yeah. It's coated in BPA.
Well, I was going to say I'll start wearing plastic gloves, but they're BPA.
I know. But here's what somebody suggested to me, that if you touch a receipt, first of all, don't let it touch your food, because a lot of fast food places will stick the receipt in with the food. But if you take the receipt, they encourage you not to take the receipt. Say no, because it adds to waste in the environment, right? Keep it all on your debit card or whatever. But if you do touch a receipt, or your child touches a receipt, wash your hands before you eat, which is always a good thing to do anyway.
That's very good. So
I know you could go crazy with all the plastic things, but more and more companies are making BPA-free things.
Okay, yeah. If anybody has great ideas on how to get away from BPA, let us know.
Yeah, we can have it be a little challenge. Yeah, the BPA like, well, how do you avoid BPA
in your life?
So you're doing the water bottle. I'm going to switch to the water bottle. We've been doing the receipt thing. Now you have that information. But I will tell you too that one of the things that they've learned with BPA, because it is something that mimics estrogen. That's literally what it does in the system, is that it has a greater possibility of affecting girls than it does boys. Okay. So really want to be mindful of that. Washing the hands, limiting it. Okay. Not being crazy about it. Okay. Let's take a break, and then we want to come back, and you're going to share this lovely story about Little League starting and the wonderful welcome to Holland.
Yeah.
All right. So stick with us. We'll be right back after this.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions. Things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So, the materials you'll be needing are
a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. So I got this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it up like so, and I'm going to wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm going to make it a little bit tighter, and I'm going to roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll, and what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's in nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm going to take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm going to seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
We're back.
We are back, and you guys have been writing in questions.
Yeah, we want to talk
somebody
about
asked about the radio show. Is it a live show too, and what time does it come on? It is a live show. It's on Monday afternoons. It's 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's 1 hour, but it does podcast directly to iTunes. It's a free download on iTunes. You can also you can download, if you don't want to go on iTunes, don't have an iTunes account, it's on TogiNet, www.toginet.com.
Okay.
And once you get there, you can search the shows, look for Everyday Autism Miracles, and all the shows are archived there. You can download them. And like I said, it's free in whichever, and we have guests on or not some weeks. So you can search topics on that site or on iTunes. And you can call in, too, during a live show. So, okay, so we also had somebody...
Girlfriends. I like that. That kind of girlfriend. I like girlfriend.
Girlfriends, can I ask a personal question? What do you two do to relax during your alone time away from Jem and Wyatt? Hobby, music, clubs, etc.
Okay.
I immediately laughed and said, what free alone time away from Jem?
What do you do? Because I think I have a couple of things I force myself to do.
I used to scrapbook.
Okay.
I don't.
Not anymore.
With a friend.
Okay. Not
I haven't in a long time. This is part of the problem. I go on Pinterest, but I don't. I scheduled my life in a way that when he's at school, the only time that I have to be away from him, I'm here.
Okay.
So I do here.
Yeah. You do
and it's
here.
a problem. And I do read.
Right.
And occasionally I get together with friends and we have a game night with all the couples when we can work that out. But my problem is I don't do enough other things. I garden. That's what I do.
That's
but
nice.
I take Jem with me to garden. So
but
it's
that's
not
good.
But I garden.
Yeah.
I'm really
because
into...
that's kind of your time. He's kind of doing his thing.
Yeah, I make him do it with me, too. We have a plot in the community thing, and we're doing some stuff in the backyard.
Because there are things I do with Wyatt. We are fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough, as the case may be, to have 2 horses and a miniature horse. And I take Wyatt riding, so he's with me on that, but that's for me, too.
Yes.
I try to get out on my horse once a week on a nice little trail ride. What I do, but I don't know that it's really relaxation, it's more what I do to keep from going crazy, is I run with a group of girlfriends on trails. And I have done quite a few marathons in the past. I'm kind of slowing down. I'm helping a friend do her first LA marathon.
Wow.
So I'm not going to be like going for like a record time. It's probably going to take us 6 hours. But going out on the trails in back of my neighborhood with my group of women in the mornings a couple of times a week is sacred time for me. And I go to church every week. If I don't go to church, I feel like something's off. I go to Prince of Peace Episcopal. It doesn't matter. I'm non-denominational. I just need that time to give thanks, to ask God for things in my life and for the people I love and for healing. And I recently joined a prayer group, which is an actual order. It's called Daughters of the King. And we pray for people. And you pledge to pray the first 10 minutes of every day of your life.
Wow.
And so I'm learning about how to pray working with this group of women, which is all around the world. And I have to say, since I have started doing it the last couple of weeks, it has made a huge difference in my life, starting my morning with prayer. And you can pray in so many different ways. I mean, gardening is an act of prayer. Cooking is an act of prayer. Holding a baby is an act of prayer. Anytime you give thanks, I think is an act of prayer. So I would say that's a big part for me of having that time for myself to regroup, because it refocuses me.
It's amazing. Your life sounds so much more wonderful and peaceful than
it's not.
and when you said, and I'm going to go run a marathon and it's going to take us 6 hours, and I thought to myself, yes, if you asked me to go run for 6 hours, this would not be leisure time. This would be a form of torture. This would be.
It's not more wonderful and peaceful than yours. As a matter of fact, my husband's in the hospital right now. He had a little operation last night. You know, he's struggling with cancer, and I was a mess last night. But I went to bed at 8:30 with my son, and I woke up this morning and did my morning meditation and prayer and got dressed to come in here, and it keeps your mind off things. Doing this too is a way to communicate with moms and parents out there, and to share knowledge and to do things for other really kind of takes the focus off you, right?
And this is why I love sitting next to you, because you inspire me, and I say that all the time, and now you all know what it is I'm talking about. In any case, somebody else wrote in and said, I'm celebrating today because my son, age 11, Mainstream, just had a very appropriate play date with several classmates sledding, building snowmen, making snow angels, throwing snowballs at the standing sled, and just having a great time being a part, and all in caps, a part of the group of boys. I'm a happy mom today, just had to share from Ohio, Mom.
That's those moments. Like when Wyatt wouldn't get off Harry Potter. Yay, Ohio, Mom. We are...
You go.
God, you go, girl. And your little boy. And just relish that moment. It's so precious.
And I know that you have been working towards that. So congratulations, victory. And it's important to celebrate, man. That's the one thing I know for sure, whether celebrating is dancing in the kitchen or taking a moment to hug and whatever it is, but celebrate it. And somebody else said, love that. Thanks for sharing, girls. I admire you both so much. And we admire you because we know you guys are doing the hard work.
Yeah. The warrior moms.
Yes, absolutely.
And dads. We love you dads, too.
Yes, absolutely. And the grandmoms and the aunts.
And the grandmoms and the aunts and the uncle. And it takes a village with autism. Never a truer word was said.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so should we, you want to talk about Holland for a minute? And then I want to talk about compassion in action.
I do want to talk about Holland for a minute. You want to start by telling us about soccer?
Well, I want to start, and I didn't bring a visual of this for Emily, but a couple of years ago, we got one of those special league soccer team things, and actually it was someone who had taught Wyatt very early on before he had regressed, like in his first Mommy and Me. She was one of the coaches, and we took him over, and they had aides working with the kids, and there were some very severely disabled children there too, as there is oftentimes in these special needs leagues. You know, you have kids with all kinds of disabilities, a lot of autism, but a lot of other disabilities. And Wyatt just didn't like it. Let's just put it that way. He didn't like the things you wear on your leg, the guards, the socks, the shoes. He was irritable. And I could see my husband on the sidelines just clenching his jaw as Wyatt wasn't participating. I could see him I could tell what was going through his head. Now, this might have been 4 years ago. And he was like, I could tell he was saying, why is my life like this today?
We've all been there.
There's other dads over there on the other, and you can see them on the other field. The kid's hitting the home run, and they're 3 years old, and they're running the peewee, And I know my husband, because at the time he worked at Fox Sports. Yeah. Okay? Testosterone Central, as he used to call it. And imagine being in that place, you're older, you have a kid with autism, you're fighting cancer, and it's all about being a man. Yeah. So I took him aside and I said, you're bummed, aren't you? And he said, yeah, I'm bummed. I didn't think I'd be here. I didn't think my life would be like this. And I said, you know what? Welcome to Holland.
There we go.
And he said, what do you mean? I said, you thought we were going to Paris, and you were all set up about Paris. And, we had our bags packed, the tour guide read everything. And I said, but you know what, honey? We're in Holland. Yeah. And you better learn to like Holland and stop wanting to be in Paris.
Right.
Or you're going to be one very unhappy man.
Yeah.
And Wyatt and I need you to come to Holland with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he went home that day. So, fast forward, Wyatt is in a baseball special needs league. He loves it. Yeah. There's some high-functioning kids with autism. There's some low-functioning kids. There are kids with other disabilities. There's 2 little boys in wheelchairs that I just adore. Yeah. And it was opening day the other day. And he was in the front of the line. Emily, do you have the picture? Wyatt's there with his hands down. He's next to the little boy Zeke in the wheelchair. And you see some of his other
without
friends.
The hat.
Yes, that's Wyatt. Of course, never looking at the camera with a smile. There are literally, by the way, hundreds of people in the bleacher. The special needs team comes out first. They're getting standing ovations. Aww. Wyatt turns around and goes like this to the crowd. I turned to Reed, and he said, welcome to Holland to me. And he said, it's pretty cool here, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Well, see, now you got me all emotional. And of course, if the reference is missing you, there
Can
is.
Can you read it?
Yes, it's by Emily Pearl Kingsley, and she wrote this in 1987. She said, "I'm often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. It's like this: when you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, welcome to Holland. Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy all my life. I've dreamt of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks. You must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met had you gone to Italy. It's a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But you've been there for a while, but after you've been there for a while, you catch your breath. You look around, and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, and Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is so busy coming and going from Italy, and they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they've had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never, ever, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a very, very significant loss. But If you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't go to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the special, the very lovely things about Holland.
I think we better take a break, and we'll come back and talk about.
Well, we're out of time.
We're out of time.
We're out of time, so we're going to sit here and just cry for you.
Okay, we'll cry.
But anyway,
how many are crying with us now?
And you can find this online. You can Google "Welcome to Holland." It's Emily Pearl Kingsley.
So beautiful.
And people refer to it a lot.
So true.
Because it really consolidates what this trip is. You know, it is a different place, but in any case,
but a wonderful place.
It is a wonderful place, and there are tulips here,
and a lot of the wonderful place is the people you will meet along the way.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I always say I've never met an autism parent that I didn't like.
Nor have I.
It's amazing the people that you meet on this journey.
So
but in any case, we have to talk about next week because we have a very special guest next week.
We have Lisa Gibbons here who's going to talk about her new book, Take Two, Happy Endings and New Beginnings. Now, Lisa has been through it. Alzheimer's has been her cross to bear.
Yeah.
And I produced her TV show years ago. She has a lot to say for autism moms.
Absolutely.
So we hope you'll be here. The fabulous Lisa Gibbons, entertainer, author, talk show host, you name it.
Yes.
In the studio for most of the hour.
And we will ask you guys to start writing your questions in now if you've got something that you want to ask.
She's going to tell us how to overcome the bumps in the road. And when you end up in a place and you go, how the hell did I get here? I wanted to go there. She's going to talk about when you wanted to go to Italy and you ended up in Holland. What do you do? And how do you make that great?
Because it is a life-changing thing, and you have to change the way you look at things and the way you do things. And we could all use a little help with that. I'm really excited to meet her and to have an opportunity to hear from her. So that's next week, Lisa Gibbons.
Yeah.
Really, really. And the week after, I haven't even had a chance to tell you, Julie Matthews will be with us the week after. So
I love Julie.
We just booked her the other day. Nourishing Hope. She'll be in the studio. Very excited about that.
Fantastic.
Okay, so we have to go, but I'll be back tomorrow with Autism Live. And until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
Sending blessings to all of you.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Bye.